Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the DevSlop show, OWASP DevSlop show. So the OWASP DevSlop is for sloppy DevOps. It's a OWASP project. If you don't know about OWASP, OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project. It's a nonprofit. We have chapters all over the world, and we're dedicated to building secure software. So please go take a look. We actually have a brand new revamped website on owasp.org, and that's where you can find resources and tools and a lot of information about our projects. OWASP DevSlop is part of that. And today, for our show, I invited a good friend of mine, Pierre-Nicolas Durette. He's a senior DevOps engineer, and we'll be talking about DevOps Actions. So traditionally, if you know about GitHub, it's a good source control, it's a good for issue tracking, but GitHub Actions seems to be changing the game. So he's here to tell us all about it, tell us what they are, and he's prepared a few demos with practical use cases. So are you ready, Pierre-Nicolas?
Yes. Hello.
Okay. Hello. So here we go.
Hello. I'm not sure if anybody can see me right now, but hello anyway.
Yes.
Can people see me?
Yes, you can.
Oh,
we see
hello.
you.
Hi. Thanks for the intro. GitHub Actions is just I'm going to go to basically before I jump to the agenda, I'm just going to talk about what it actually is. It's actually GitHub's own sort of CI/CD suite, but it does way more than that, as the title of this shows. It's basically, GitHub, GitLab, and all these other tools already had their own options, own features to build. GitHub didn't have that, so they built something to do that. But at the same time, it's giving you way more than I think the competing solutions. So we'll talk about. We'll go about what an action looks like. What a workflow looks like. Basically, a workflow is a YAML file, so you can have many of them. Then we'll go into demoing. So basically, most of this will be demos. So at first, we'll pretty standard. We're going to build and test some code on pull requests on push. And then we'll do more of the using Terraform with GitHub Actions. HashiCorp themselves actually having GitHub Actions that they've created. And then we'll go into some other use cases that are actually just fun little things to show what more than CI/CD can do with GitHub Actions. So we'll add a pull request labeler, and then we'll use something that we can actually write / commands in issues to execute things or to use stuff. Now we'll recap and then a bit of links. And now let's go into what an action is, what a workflow is. Sorry. It's the workflow is the bigger piece, basically, that everything else lives in. So, like I said earlier, we'll see through the demo. But this is basically what we see on screen. It's a YAML file. They'll have a name, pretty standard, and then that's one of the biggest strengths of GitHub Actions, the on keyword. So on tells you what will trigger this workflow. Again, this is common to TravisCI, CircleCI, etc. But in this case, GitHub Actions lets you trigger on every single event that happens to GitHub, and that goes beyond code. You can have something like adding a comment, deleting a pull request, closing a branch, making your repository public, someone adding a star. Like you can do a lot of things. So inside a workflow, it's divided into jobs, and each job's of steps. So the jobs are, example here, we have the job called build. Always has the runs on, what you want to run it on, pretty standard, but you're just mentioning that GitHub Actions does have Linux, Windows, and Mac OS, so you can pretty much build everything you need. And then the steps, which here, the use keyword is actually the basics of how to call an action. We'll see that later. Here, the action is called checkout. It's in the repository called Actions, which is GitHub's first-party actions. And then here we call version v1 of that. And then the other type of step you can have is basically a run. So you just run a shell command. In this case, just echo hello world. And now let's see all of this. So the rest of the presentation is actually only demos. So let me go into here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a repository from scratch, and I will keep adding to it, kind of like augment. So we'll start with basic code, and then we'll add some sort of like cloud interaction with Terraform, and then we'll just add some other fun workflows to see, kind of to give you an idea of what you can do. So let's just create this, make it secret. All right, so I'm gonna just check this out right here. And then I have, yeah, it is empty. So there you go. So here I'm gonna copy over some Python code, pretty simple. So today I'm gonna create a function, like a Google Cloud function. So it's, oops. Hang on. It's use app, and then here let me just do that first, and then I'll talk. So there you go, and ignore. All right. Okay. So what we'll do today, this is basically it's basically just a simple Python function that will allow us to use with Google Cloud Functions, just as a little demo. Google Cloud Functions, it's the equivalent of Lambda on AWS or Azure Functions on Azure. So I think that's should be big enough here. All right, so pretty simple here. I need to actually zoom out a bit. Oops. So, yeah. All right. So this is this is basically the demo, the example from Google itself, from Google Cloud. It's basically hello HTTP. You call that. You can either pass in a name as a JSON argument or as a URL parameter, or if none, it just uses the world and then it says hello world or hello whatever name you passed. So pretty simple. And then I even have some fantastic unit tests here from basically testing these three cases that we just explained. And here are the requirements. So if you've ever used Python, this is basically the libraries you're going to use. This use just something called Flask, just to do a bit of a kind of checking, but then this is basically only, it's basically just only a function you can call and you get an answer. But then the request you get is from Flask. That's all from Google, but we'll see that later. It's really important for it's not really important for this demo. So what we're gonna do now is basically just add this. Oops, there you go. So we can just add this code. And then we're gonna do initial commit. All right, we're just gonna push that to master. All right, so now let's go back to our repo here, and then we have this Python code as we saw earlier. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to show the action tab. So basically here, this is the only time I'll do this, because you can actually create actions directly from the web UI. And as you can see, GitHub has detected that this is a Python application. So I'm going to actually click on this, and it will set me up with a basic standard application, workflow. Here we can see kind of like a little preview. But before that, just while I'm here, I just want to show a bit of things that you can do also. First of all, there's actions for all the clouds already. So you can do whatever you need, Kubernetes, et cetera, et cetera. And then of course, there's there's actions for a ton of languages already. So I'll do set of workflow here, and then you can see this looks a bit like what we've seen earlier. So every workflow is a YAML file that lives in .github/workflows. And in this case, I will just call it app test. Oops. All right. And then we'll see here. So the first action, this is an action that GitHub provides. Usually, that's usually the first action you'll have especially if you need the code so this checks out the code. Here we have another action from GitHub called setup Python. So basically, this sets up a Python environment. It just installs all the tools and the version you need, and this introduces actually the keyword with. With is basically how to pass arguments to actions. So actions are like functions. They have inputs and outputs, and this is how you pass arguments that the action author has defined. And then here it's pretty standard. Usually for Python projects, you upgrade pip, which is the manager, the package manager, and then you install the requirements. And then here there's some linting by default. We won't go into this. If you want to be really, really bad to your developers or to anyone develop, you can make this break if you have like an extra line or whatever, which sometimes I do depending. And then here it just runs pytest. You want to run a test. I'm netting -v, so it actually shows us the result. So we'll just commit this. Test workflow, and then I'll commit that directly to master because we're still doing the initial commits here. Commit file. One thing that is interesting to add is that well, first of all, this is on push. So every time you push to a branch, a pull request, you push whatever like a tag, it will do it. And also something to add is that I'm pushing an action that acts on push. It will actually act immediately on that commit. So here you can see Python application is actually running. And it's actually done because our tests are wonderful because we've we just coded something and nothing broke because we're good. We're fantastic developers. And then here we can see our 100% pass. We had 3 tests as passed. All right, so that's cool. But now, let's do something actually a little more advanced, which is we will deploy this as a cloud function on Google Cloud, as I was saying earlier. So for that, I'm going to copy some Terraform code and some Terraform and some workflow that uses Terraform. So I'm going to go back to my terminal here. I'm going to pull.
So up until now, we've used actions that are native to GitHub, and now you're going to use a third-party action that is created by Terraform?
Yes. Something I'll show later. So everything that starts with so when you have an action here, I can just show it here. When you have an actions that are, so this means this is the GitHub organization, right? And this is the kind of repository, and then you can have the path. So all the ones that are actions are actually made by GitHub. So they're like first party, yes. Okay. And then here, as I explained earlier, we just run commands. So yes, as you said, the actions are actually first party. They actually made quite a lot of good stuff already. So from here, now I'm going to copy over some Terraform, and then we'll copy Terraform, and then we will copy another workflow. GitHub workflows called publish, and then we will put it in the proper place right here. All right. Now let's go back to our VS Code. So we'll go to the Terraform quickly. This is not like a Terraform video, but I'll just explain, a little bit what it does. Basically, and I'm pretty sure, I think Lambda works similar to that. I don't want that. I know Lambda works similar to that, and Azure Functions. Typically, a way of doing it is to you kind of just make a zip of your code, and then you put it in a storage bucket, or blob storage if you're in Azure, or the S3 in AWS, and then you just so basically this just creates that bucket for the code. This here says take that zip, which we'll create later. And then just put it on that bucket that we define here. And then here we have the actual cloud function, runtime Python 3.7. And then here the most important one is the entry point, which is LOHTTP, which is basically this right here. So this is pretty straightforward. And then here we have some IAM permissions, so just to make sure that we can invoke it and everything. And then here we have some sort of variables, the region and the project, etc., which is pretty, it's just a way to kind of like parameterize your Terraform infrastructure as code. And I added this as well. So this workflow called publish, which actually introduced something new here. So it's still on push, but then we actually added we're actually adding some as you can see, VS Code already has all the documentation as well, which is awesome. So we added some attributes for push. So we say only on branches, only on master, right? So this will only happen when you push to master. So basically, typically, when someone open a pull request and then you branch that pull request in. So again, we run on Ubuntu, and then we check out our code again. And here we're starting to use some different. We're going to use some third-party actions. And here's one actually made by Google Cloud themselves, which allows you to actually authenticate to G-Cloud. So the way I'm going to go over this a little bit so people can get the context. So put simply, to use Google Cloud, outside of Google Cloud, you need, and buy a piece of software. So that's not a person. You will use something called a service account. And a service account is actually all you need is a key, which I'll add later to repository. And that key is actually the path to that key is set to a variable, an environment variable called Google application credentials. And from now on, everything that uses the Google Cloud SDK will know to get that and will be authenticated. So in here. I'm going to add these a bit later, but this will authenticate to Google Cloud. And something I want to add is that one job, so in this case, Terraform apply, which actually, yeah. So here, so one job actually one shares the same environment. So here this actually sets the variable, and it will everything subsequently will just use it. Now I just realize I actually didn't take the right action. It's almost the same. Then I'm just gonna copy it over instead, just so confuse myself. It's almost the same. I jumped the gun a little bit. So what I'm to do is called infra test. Let's just use that instead. It's almost the same as you can see, but this one is actually on pull request. So we want to do everything but Terraform apply. So we just want to test our things. But basically, it pretty much does the same here. We have the same Google Cloud credentials setting up. One thing it does earlier actually is, and that's here from HashiCorp. HashiCorp, they have created really good Terraform GitHub Actions. And here we just call Terraform FMT, which is for format, so which will fail if the code is badly formatted. And then we actually do this before authenticating because usually when you build, there's this thing that we say fail early, fail often. So you want to fail as early as possible to the little problems. And then here we do the thing I explained earlier. Sorry about that. I mixed my workflows, but that's fine. We'll go back to it later. And then we do a Terraform init, which is basically initializes the bucket that I'm going to use. Again, these are all, we see again that with keyword, and these are all arguments that HashiCorp has created in their action. So they actually have the same action that can call any kind of like Terraform subcommand, which is great. Another point here, here with the and keyword, you can pass any environment variable to your action. One thing that comes back a lot is actually the GitHub token action environment variable. And here, this is actually a token that is used by the action to execute, to run something on the GitHub API on your behalf. So it's actually, so this is classic. Whenever you want to use the API from anywhere, usually you pass a token, an application token. So here in actions, this actually you don't set it; it's set for you, and it creates a token for the time that this action is running, and then it disappears. So here, this is usually when this is. Typically this is going to be in documentation of action is say, hey, you have to pass GitHub token. That means that the action wants to do something with the API. In this case, what it does, and that's really cool, and we'll see that in a minute, is that it will comment back with the result of these actions. So it's going to run an init, it's going to run, a format, and it will write a comment in a pull request to give you the output of the command, which is super powerful, especially when you come to, so we do validate, but especially when you come to plan, because then you can see in your pull request right away what your Terraform will change, which is pretty powerful. So we're going to run this. We're going to see what it does.
Just to go back, just to make sure I understand, you've built a workflow here, and it has a couple actions. First, the checkout action, that is first party. Then you did the format by Terraform that validate our format. And then you authenticate to Google.
Yes.
To the platform.
Yeah, I authenticate to Google because everything that comes after this needs... actually, mostly init and plan needs access to the cloud, right?
Okay.
Because it needs to interact with what's it called in Terraform. It's called the state file, which there's many ways to store it. You can use Terraform Cloud. You can, you can use console. You can put it in many places. Right now, I'm actually storing it. My backend is a Google cloud storage bucket.
Okay.
So from now on, you need a cloud authentication, right?
Okay. What does the validate action do and the plan action do?
So the validate, it just checks if the format checks if the format is good. It's basically just linting.
Yes.
Validate is just checks if basically your code is valid. So if it would actually run, right?
Okay.
If there's no syntax errors and something really bad. Or something that doesn't make sense, variables are not referenced, etc. etc. And then not variables are not referenced, but variables that you call that don't exist, etc. etc. And then the plan will actually look at what's in the state on the cloud, okay, and then see what you want to do, and then give you what steps it's going to take, right?
Okay.
Because Terraform is a descriptive kind of like system. So you describe what you want the system to be. So it's going to compare what you have, what you want to do, and the plan is basically that change, right? So what you have to add, delete, recreate, update, depending on the use case.
Okay.
And this is something that when you work with Terraform, that's something you do all the time. So the fact that it can run automatically inside this is great, because then you don't have to give anybody, like you don't have to let anybody use Terraform by themselves. It's a single point via GitHub. There's other solutions like what's it called? It was called Atlantis, which was the guy that made Atlantis was hired by HashiCorp. So it's basically the first thing that you had, and it actually writes in pull requests what the steps it's going to do. And then there's like other ways, but this is the really easiest way, because only with this we can actually have Terraform running in our environment and see the result of the plans and everything. So let's actually
let's run it, and see the output. Awesome.
Let's run it. So what I'm going to do is actually right now my Terraform code is magic. So I'm gonna add an error to it, just to see it fail, right? So I'm gonna add this here, and then this here, and then I'm gonna just do commit added Terraform. Actually, you know what? Instead of doing that, let's switch to a branch. And then Terraform, there you go. Okay, and then let's commit. Not git. All right. Let's push that, and then we'll work from a pull request, so you can see kind of what. Because if you remember, the infra test workflow actually runs from pull requests, so that's why I wanted to do a pull request here. All right, so we'll create, but before creating the pull request, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a crazy error. So I will add this here, a tab. Normally Terraform doesn't care about tabs, about alignment, but Terraform format does, and it's really it doesn't like that. So let's do this, and then let's do add super mistake. All right, and then let's push that again. Right, now let's go back to our repo here. We should see that we added something. There you go, add Terraform, compare pull requests, add Terraform. Typically, if you're, as a good developer, you should add a nice description of what it does, obviously, but time is of the essence. So let's see here, show all checks. So this check was already there, so you can see the build push that actually executed. And as I said earlier, when you push something and it's supposed to act on the event that just occurred, it will actually be picked up automatically. So here you can see infratest, which is the name of our workflow, and then Terraform, which is the name of our job, and then here's the name of the event. As you can see, right away, you have Terraform format failed, and you can see my error right there. So I can just go and fix it. This is like super powerful. This is nothing new, but to do these sort of things before, like something that responds in a pull request, you needed bots which have to run on a server outside of GitHub, and then they need to be kind of authenticated and kind of like added, and then there's the whole web hooks and everything. So this is just with writing a YAML file, I'm actually getting right away feedback. which is super easy to get started. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fix my problem. And then I'm going to go back to my here thing, and I'm going to say, and I'm like, fixed to F. And I'm going to push that back. All right. And now, so since here, let's go back to the actions here. So in infra test, so the first one failed. As you can see here, like any kind of build code system, when it fails somewhere, I mean, this is configurable by default. When it fails on a step, it doesn't do the rest. Failure, they fail often. That's what you want. And then here I'm going back to my infra test, which actually now should be running all the way. And actually, oh, you know what? This will fail because I actually forgot to put the, it will fail because I actually did not set my credentials. So there you go. There's nothing to, there's actually nothing to act on, which was all planned, obviously. But then we can see actually the failure that I was not planning, but then, it's a CI system, so it's magical. So here you go, you can see the fail default credentials because they are empty. So let me get those here. So I'm gonna just do, actually right here. Yeah. This trajectory, I would have changed it. Okay, hang on. Let's see. I'm going to start with that. So here I'm going to my settings. This is a system that works with most CI systems. You can just add secrets that won't show. Let's see, email here. This actually, let me do that again because there was a line from return, and then let me do the same for my. Oops, oh no, that was my key, but it's gone now. It will go on after the show, so copy. All right, everyone saw my key. You can do some crazy things. Actually, you can't do much because that key can only do what you should use the principle of the least responsibility to basically make sure that it only does what you need to do. So this can only create buckets. So if someone wants to go ahead and create 1 million buckets right now, they're good. And okay, so there you go. So now let me go back to my GitHub here. Actually, since I already ran this, I could just rerun this because why not? Actually, from here, and then I'll just do Terraform, and I'll do run all jobs, so I don't need to like push again or whatever to trigger it. And now it should do what we need. So let's see, and then actually, everything's good. It's good. Take a sip of water. Excuse me. Okay. All right. If Terraform init goes, then everything should be good. You shall see. There we go.
So we're seeing like all the actions one by one passing.
Yeah, so this is initializing. So you always have to initialize every time you do something with Terraform, so it connects to your backend, which is where the state file is, and it downloads those things. And then here it's actually the plan. So it's right there. You can see everything that's going to happen, but then, it's way better to go see it right here. All right, so failed, and then it worked. So plan success. So here you can see, with the plus means that everything will be created. So it'll create that cloud function. It will create that IAM, and then that bucket, and then everything they need. So it will create 4 things. So now I could just merge the pull request and then we'll go to master, but then it would not do anything because there's no actions for that.
Yes.
So that's actually the action that I jumped the gun on, that will have that I have it here called publish. So this one actually is on pull request. This one is on push branch to master, right? And then here we do the same. So here we don't do the validate. The format, because we assume that it's all good. This is a really basic sort of like pipeline, but normally you'd have more guardrails. So here we authenticate with Google. Here simply we just use the run action, the run step rather, to do a zip. So basically we just put our main.py and then our requirements in that zip, and then that's the app.zip that we saw in reference in Terraform. Then we'd have to do an init again, a plan again, just to see what's going on. And then this will do the apply. So this will actually apply and push things to the cloud.
So we skipped the format, we skipped the validate, but we added the apply because we want to actually do it.
Exactly. So I mean, you could still have validate and format, but then it's like, it's like linting your code before deploying. Like typically at this point, if that's that point on the pipeline, it should have failed already somewhere along the system, along the way, if it was not badly formatted, right?
Yeah.
All right. So here, since it's half an hour past, I'm gonna go and do. I'm gonna push that. Oops. Here. So sorry. Here, right here. So status. So add publish. All right, and then push commit publish, and then push origin at Terraform. Okay. Right, so right now it's actually going to run again because it's a change. Typically, you'd have better control. So basically, one thing that you can do with GitHub Actions and say only rerun a certain workflow if a certain path has changed, right? So you could say, only rerun Terraform format plan init plan if what you committed, the files are in the Terraform directory, right? But just for the demo, I just did a simple push, but it's really configurable. Actually, I have just an example here. Just quickly. This is from the documentation, and you can see you can actually go quite hardcore. You can just do branch and list, and you can do sort of like, a lot of each event can have a lot of attributes. So you can say just do that on a tag, or et cetera, et cetera. We'll see more later, actually. And now that this actually also here, I just want to show this is a Google Cloud. Right now there's no function because there was no init. There was no apply. And now by merging this, it should actually start running the publish. So we got branch, and then let's go back to our actions, and then publish has appeared. So it's still run this because it's a push. Again, so you can set these things if you don't want it to run every time. But it's not a bad thing. This usually should be quick. And then our publish workflow with our Terraform apply job is actually executing now because it's a merge to master. And here, it zipped our stuff. Then it's indenting again, and then the apply. So the apply, I think it shouldn't be too long. We'll see that in a second. Actually, while it's doing this, you know what? Let's go see here. So this is actually the repo of for the so this is the official HashiCorp organization. This is their repo for their GitHub Actions. So basically, what you saw is basically me copy pasting these here, right? I just changed a few things, but they have pretty good documentation. You can do pretty cool things to it as outputs. So basically, if you have a plan and the plan has changed, you can use that kind of like to branch into other steps or another job or something. So you can really kind of like go deep in this. And then every action, so that's something that's also interesting. Every action repo always has a action or YAML file, which is basically what describes the action, and it serves also as documentation. So knowing what the inputs and outputs are. So if you want to see really how to use an action, and it's basically, I guess, well, not documented, whatever, the action or YAML always helps here. And actually, yes, since we're here as well, GitHub Actions. So this is the one called Actions, which is GitHub's main kind of organization for any action they created. So you've seen there's 35. I was looking for actually setup because as you remember, for my setting up, I use setup Python, but then there's a lot of them that have been created by GitHub themselves. Go, Ruby.NET, Java, Elixir, Node, etc. So there's actually a lot of fun stuff in here to kind of see. And here, let's go back to our DevSlop repo, and the apply has been successful. So if we go back here, you can see the last, the little checkbox here, the little check mark. That means the last repo, the last commit was successful. And then you can see here the Terraform apply worked. And then I'm gonna go here, reload, and then we should have a cloud function called hello. And we do. So yes. There you go, magical. Wow. All right. Awesome. So sorry.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah, so and this is something that even 2 years ago or more, you needed so much more work to do this. I just think that this is great. Actions really bring something awesome to the table for that. And now, with the time we have left, let me go into these what I had here. These sort of like these two here, okay, to show kind of like things that are not related to code. Just fun stuff. So we're gonna add something called the labeler. So let me go back to the master. Actually, you know what? Let me let me make it the master. It's fine. I'll just create another pull request. Check out master. All right. Now all the stuff we've added. I'm gonna just create a branch. Labels, and then let's copy a workflow called labels. Actually, I'm gonna do that there. Actually called labeler right here, and then this one is really simple. Oh yeah, actually I have another file copy, and I'll explain that in a sec. Here and then. Frantically deleting. All right, there you go. Okay, now let's go back to our VS Code here. Let's close this. So I added something called labeler. This is actually also, so I see on pull request again. So just for pull requests, because we want to label pull requests. this is something that also a cool thing that GitHub has made. So it's from Actions. And here again, in this case, you actually don't pass an environment, you pass it as a variable, but you pass that same token. And then here it has, as part of the configuration, it has a file. And then here it's basically apply these labels on GitHub if something in the commits match these file globs. So everything that's test is going to be, hey, it's a test, everything app is app, and then everything Terraform directory is Terraform. So that file is actually just a file in .github, because actions are actually just code that you write. So you can have your own, config files to do all this stuff, which can be, again, super powerful. So what I'm going to do here is that I am going to go back to my repo. I'm going to add everything I've added. So add labeler, right? I'm going to push that to labels branch, all right? And then, yeah, right here. Right here, and then I'm gonna go back, do a pull request, and so here not much will happen. Actually, it's still gonna, as I said earlier, it's still gonna run the Terraform plan and everything, because there's nothing stopping it from doing so, because that's the way this works. Again, you can make something more suited to your needs. It doesn't have to do these tests, these runs that you don't need every time. But then I'm gonna let this run, and then what we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna change just some code just to see that we're gonna, here I'm gonna add a new line, and here I'm gonna add a new line. So basically, I'm added something to the app and something to Terraform, right? So let's go back to our repo, and then here we'll see status. Let's see a crazy line. So here, add crazy changes, all right? And then we're gonna push to labels. And then let's go back to our repo here. All right, so again, this is the plan, whatever, because that's what it does on pull requests. And then as you can see, here you go. So it's running the pull request labeler and then the triage job on the pull request. And then, since this is a new one, there you go. So there you go. Now we have beautiful labels that indicate what sort of changes we have. So we have app here. We can put it in a pretty color. And then, because by default, they're boring. And then there you go. And then we go back to this. And then we see a pull request. And then, there you go, app and Terraform. So that all happened automatically. So if you look at repos like Kubernetes, for example, or something crazy, there's a lot of pull requests, a lot of issues. So they have systems to triage these things. Usually they use third-party kind of like bots and stuff, but now it's all things you can do as code like this inside your repo, which is cool.
So once you label everything, you can then create more actions that will behave based on these labels. So if
yes, that's the beautiful thing about GitHub, is that everything that you do, again, I'm going to go here. It's a bit of a heavy documentation, but everything that you do has sort of like a thing you can act upon. So here, for example, when you do a fork, when you write an issue comment, created, edited, deleted, issues, look at this, like open, edited, transfer, pin, unpin, close, assign, and you see labeled. So there you go. So when an issue is labeled or unlabeled, you can act on this, right? And then you can act on many things. Like, here is the issue is type, open, edited, or milestone, right? Yeah. And then there's a ton of things. It's actually
very granular. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like pull request, assign, unassign, close, ready for review. Like you can do pretty advanced things with this. So now I'm gonna show that just this is just for fun, just to kind of give you an idea of what you can do as well.
That's the one you create your own action.
Yeah. So I've actually created an action called labeler. Replier.
Okay.
So what it does is you write something in an issue, and then it replies to you with the same thing. Okay. Pretty simple, but then it uses the GitHub API because it needs to kind of like, well, I guess I'll go to it and I'll talk about it at the same time. Okay. So let's go back to I guess master, because it's fine. Oops. Oh, let me just merge that request here. Everything's good. Oh, look, everything is perfect. All right, just the way we like them. All right. Okay, and now, oops. Let me pull back master. There you go to my changes. I'm gonna just stay on master for this. And then we're gonna go get something from one last workflow that I've created called replier. I actually looked it up. It's actually a word. You can write it with an I or a Y, just so everyone knows. So this is legit. And then you go, and then here it's legit. There you go. So here actually I'm introducing something new. So here again on issue comment. So this is for an issue comment that is created. And then I created something called ASCII. I don't know why. It can just be just this. All right. And then this is actually an action that I wrote on one of my repos. So this, you can see that you can have multiple actions in one repo. This is the organization or the user, and then these are just subdirectories. And then this
are your actions that you create on your own, are they automatically public? Can anybody else use it, or you have to make them public?
So actions have to be public. As this demo, maybe they'll change the future. Maybe they will change that in the future. But now, to use an action from the repo, it needs to be a public repo.
Okay, so I could go in your repo and use your own action.
Yes, you could.
Okay, you
should. It's wonderful. You'll see.
Okay.
And then here we actually kind of like showing an example of the expression, the expressions we can use. There's a lot of functions. So if GitHub.event.comment. So this is actually the context. So when an action, when an event happens, right, and an action is triggered on an event, GitHub will send it what is called the payload of the event, which is a huge JSON file with everything that is important about that. So basically, if you write an issue comment, right, it will send it, who wrote that comment, on which repo, what is the comment, obviously. So this is what this uses. And then here, this is something that people have started doing. It's kind of cool. So you can have, this is something that all bots also do. So I kind of create like a little command. So I can write /ASCII, and then after that, I will have, an argument, and then, something will happen. I can show the code a bit after that if you have time. But here, and once again, I need the authentication because I need to act as a user somehow, because this uses the API. So let me push that to our repo. And then add replier, and then just push that master. Now, I think I've said that a few times. Then again, we just push the master, so it's actually going to do a Terraform apply right now. Like I said, if you do these things, you should constrain your things better. But it's going to do an apply, but nothing has changed. So Terraform apply will just do, hey, nothing to do. So now that's there. Let's try it. So let's go here. New issue, and then call it hello. Or, oh no, wait, it's an issue. This is a problem. And then, just with nothing because no description. And then we can do ASCII and see if this works. DevSlop, right? And then comment. So this actually, I timed it yesterday. It actually takes 30 seconds. The reason it is simple is that it actually, my action is actually Python in a Docker image. So it has to pull the Docker image from scratch and rebuild it every time.
Okay.
Natively writing actions is in Node.js. So GitHub has provided a toolkit in Node.js. These takes like 2 seconds or even less. But you can also write them in anything you want because, there you go. So it wrote, apparently that's DevSlop in some sort of font. It's very, it's like random font. So let's do it again. So it looks like, oh, it's like metal, like DevSlop. And then, so yeah, as I was saying that, but then it works, woo! But also, as I was saying that, you can actually, your actions can be Docker images or even a Docker file that you provide there. And so you can write them as anything you want, right? And actually, we can go see here, the run of this. So reply to comment. It's running right now. Ask your reply. It's done, but let's go see. So actually, see, it needs to build my action every time. So as you can see, this is actually a Docker pull, and I try to keep it as small as possible, but it still takes some time. And then run and wrote DevSlop. Now let's go see the issues, and then it wrote hopefully a more readable font. There you go. Wow, so cool, huh? And then this is so that's just something that I created to show kind of like how this works. Basically, when I do this, the payload is sent to that software, so that it's a Python that uses the GitHub token to get what I said here, to get that comment, right? And then again, to authenticate, to be able to write a comment, and using some ASCII art sort of library thing. So yeah,
cool.
Yeah. And then actually, the demo it's pretty much done. As a recap, I just want to say I have a few things to show, but as a recap, it's a short recap. So power to events, as you said, as I showed earlier, you can do so many things, even things that people have not thought of doing yet. It's actually pretty awesome. Actions are, you can do really simple things, but you can just keep them abstracted, right? So it's like functions basically, but also a lot of people, actually I haven't shown the marketplace yet, a lot of people here, as of now, there's 2,200 actions. These are people that have published on their repos things. There are so many things, code review, there's some code quality analysis, security, since it's OWASP, run SNCC. There's a lot of make sure that you're analyze your Docker, static analysis and stuff like that. You can use Nancy.
Yes. Good tool.
Actually, fun effect Nancy. Yeah, and there's actually a lot of them. Also, project management. So there's a few things that are beyond the code. There's one actually that I find really cool. So I actually wrote a blog about this. So this is actually, that presentation is based on the blog. So if you want to know more in kind of in more detail, check it out. But there's actually, for example, Jira, they've made actions for Atlassian administration for Jira that will create issues when it finds to do in the code, which I think is pretty awesome, actually. And then there's also this page that from Sarah Drasner, who's it's one of the awesome pages with little glasses here kind of thing. And there's a lot of resource here, a lot of things that people have done, and sometimes it just blows my mind. Automatic rebase, doing some sort of commits on your behalf, automatically merge pull requests based on whatever. These are things that you can do with Jenkins, but we needed these plugins, and it's so complicated and annoying. This makes it really, really clean.
So how do you verify? Like, do you use any action, or there is just like a marketplace? You trust everything
Yes, you
in
trust
there?
everything. No, you don't trust everything. I mean, this is a bit like, like curling, do a curl to SH kind of thing. Of course, you can see what's there, but the fact that everything is open, I'm just going to print that one at random. See, this is such a test action. Like this is like nothing, right? But you can still go see in that repo and see, like, you can go see what it does. This one has literally nothing. It's basically spins up the Docker container that echoes echo action,
Okay.
test action.
Useful.
But then, yeah, you can see what it does. I can actually show you the one that we showed that ASCII reply. Quickly, basically here, this is my action.yaml, which is like what defines what the action. So when you use an action, it needs to point to a directory that has action.yaml, right?
Okay.
So here I just say use a Docker file, pass this, right, the repo token, and then that's it. And then my Docker file, it's pretty simple. Again, it's Python, and then I just entry point and execute Python with the parameters.
Yeah, and I've noticed earlier that some contributors are verified, like Terraform actions are verified as a source, and probably all the cloud service providers as well.
Yeah, and especially the security ones, because that's important. So there's actually a sort of like Twitter or whatever. There's like a verified sort of where was I? Oh, here. I'm gonna leave this action. There's actually some let's say security, something like
Sonar
like
Cloud, yeah. Sonar Source is a verified creator.
Because GitHub says, yeah, this is quality. This makes sense. So it's a thing that helps you kind of like
vet.
And also there's a number of stars. It's just like standard GitHub. Also, when you use an actions are pieces of software. So there's versioning, right? So as we seen earlier, like here, like anywhere, like here, well, this is not a good example because I'm just called master because it's mine, but usually you should do that. Like example here, here's all master, good job, HashiCorp. But here, for example, here, it's like version 2. So if there's a breaking change in version 3, it will not break your stuff. So, it's nice. So they thought about this, and a lot of systems that use similar things don't have that sort of like really thing that should be so common. Let me just see. I had some links here, and here, the sky is the limit. I think we mentioned that a few times. You can do a lot of things, and I think a lot of things people don't have even sort of thought of. And actually, I actually showed all these links already. So, these I guess will be in the video description, I suppose.
Okay, so let's go back. Go back to your links page.
Yes, I go back to my links page. This one.
Yes. Okay, so if we want to get started and maybe go slower and go through your definitions, you have your blog post on Medium.
Yeah, which is actually pretty cool. So it's pretty much like what we've done here, maybe a little less because I didn't want to make it super long. Mm-hmm. But then you know how to get started.
Awesome.
But also the documentation is great now. You can go and getting started basically, and then it tells you. And then like I said here, if you have a new repo, it won't show up anymore. But when you do actions, you can do new workflow, and then it's actually, I don't know, let's just do one, for example, deploy ECS. I don't know, oh my God, that's a lot of text. But yeah, you have your action here, and then this is actually sort of like, there's like autocomplete here, right? So it will help you kind of like if you have an error, I don't know, I can't do an error right now, but it will actually autocomplete for you and it kind of help you validate your YAML. So this is also great to start with. And then here, there's even stuff here. You can search the marketplace directly and just like add stuff directly, and just copy this, and then you just add it at the end, and then magic. And then you have to kind of
the official documentation. The creators documentation as well. Like Terraform has good documentation on their own actions and the cloud provider.
Yes.
And then you had mentioned a GitHub marketplace for action where you can have, anything you can think of and you can create your own as well.
Yes.
And Sarah Drasner's awesome action.
Yeah, it's just a really great, a lot of great resources, very, very thorough and updated often. And also, if you look up, like, there's like topics on GitHub, GitHub Actions, which has a lot of things too, and people, a lot of things that people have done are like, it's actually kind of cool. It's like we saw earlier, there's like 2,300 right now, and these are only the ones that are on our marketplace. There's some that are not even listed there. So you can do like, I really can't wait to use this more, or like a more intense workflows. So far, I've only done like builds and stuff like that, and like what I've shown here. But I think people will find ways to go really far with this.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. We're just a bit over an hour. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
We've gone through a lot of things. 4 demos, a good explanation. Oh, the Docker plush. Very cute. So yes, hopefully people can go back to the video. We'll publish that. This will stay on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe for our next shows. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Wait, I just want to say, press that subscribe. No, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and click the bell to new videos come online. I want it to be like the influencer. Okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I never have the courage to actually do that. So smash that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yes, thank you everyone for being here. I hope that was helpful. Please don't hesitate to comment if you have questions. We do follow them and we'll get back to you. Go back to the video if you have question. If you want to go any slower, go back to his Medium post that is really well documented. So again, thank you, Pierre-Nicolas, for this. That was awesome. That was a great demo.
Welcome.
Thank you for your work.
It was really fun to prepare, actually. That little ASCII like thing. It's just fun.
Awesome, and people can go back to it. We'll see you next month. Pardon me?
Sorry, I keep cutting you. They can actually use it too. That little thing I've created. And they can just use it. That ASCII comment thing. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, I will stop cutting you.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to let them know that we have a few shows planned for next month. At least one on policy as code with Rosemary Wang from HashiCorp. So that should be
really?
fun.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Nice. Okay. I actually know of her. That's awesome.
Yeah. So March 15th. So subscribe, hit the bell to make sure that you're notified, or follow us on Twitter, OWASP DevSlop, or on LinkedIn. We're a bit everywhere. So thank you for being here, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.